Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing. I'm Alex Cologne, PC Mag's executive editor of reviews, and I'm here with Will Greenwald, our home theater expert and lead analyst. So today we're talking about the Sonos Ray. This is the newest soundbar from Sonos. It's also their smallest, most affordable soundbar yet. It starts at $279, which is far less pricey than the $449 Beam and the $899 Arc. Now, Will, you've reviewed all three of these soundbars from Sonos, and even though the Ray is the most affordable, you've given it the lowest rating. You want to just walk us through some of the different features of the Ray, how it sounds, and why it's getting a lower rating than some of the other soundbars.
Sure. First, this is the soundbar. It is, as you can see, pretty small. It's simply weaker than the Beam in more or less every way. And while it is much less than the Beam, although the Beam is about $50 more than it was when we first reviewed it, it's $449 now, and it was originally $339 or $399. Obviously, there have been various factors that certain consumer electronics have gotten more expensive over the last couple of years. But even at $279, like cheap for a Sonos system, but for a soundbar, especially one that's sort of supposed to be a lower end soundbar, this is pretty expensive. Like you can get an entire 5.1 channel Atmos system from Vizio, the M Series 5.1, for $330, and that has a subwoofer, which, speaking of which, one of the most weak parts of this soundbar, it usually is plugged in, but this is to demonstrate, it has very weak bass. The Beam also has weak bass, but this one, it sounds outright thin at times, or at least overly bright, because there just is not enough low end to give much power to whatever you're listening to, which is just a pretty big weakness when the only way to expand your Sonos system with bass is to get the Sonos Sub, which is $700, or almost 3 times as much as this.
And now I know Sonos is rumored to be working on a mini sub, but we can't comment on it because it hasn't been announced yet. We don't know if it'll actually appear. We don't know how much it will cost. So we can't plan on augmenting the Ray with a smaller, more affordable mini sub until we actually know that it exists.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger concerns. And that's basically just the sound quality. It's also stereo only rather than three channel. There's a center channel in the Beam, and it's the Beam supports Dolby Atmos spatial audio. The Ray does not support spatial audio at all. No Dolby Atmos, no DTS X. So it just can handle digital, like 5.1 channel sound, but even then, they're only stereo channels on the front. So just not as much imaging as you'll get from the Beam, and not as expandable, because even if you do expand it with Sonos One satellites and a subwoofer, you're still not going to get the Atmos experience like you'll get with the Beam. But that's really only kind of part of the issues we have with it. It's also, it's difficult to see because it is dark, but if you can see up here, there is only an optical audio input rather than HDMI. The Beam only has HDMI, but there's an adapter so you can use optical with the Beam and the Sonos Arc, the Arc is excellent and stands on its own, but it's also $900. Because this is optical only, you can program it to have your TV remote change the audio, but to adjust the volume, but you're not going to get an on-screen indication like if you're using an Arc audio return channel connection over HDMI with another soundbar, because with that, you actually see what level the audio's at. Otherwise, you need to look at the Sonos app on your phone, which is just kind of limiting.
I think it's also worth pointing out that this, compared to the other two Sonos soundbars, this is the only one that doesn't function as a smart speaker.
Yeah, that is definitely an issue too. There's no microphone on it, so you can't use Alexa or Google Assistant with it like you can with the Beam and the Arc. And the Sonos One costs, I believe, $200 now. I think there's a model for $180, but less than the Ray, and that has a microphone on it that you can use a voice assistant. Taking that feature away and also having this audio downgrade and having this kind of inferior connection option, that is just too much of a compromise to save $150 on.
Right. So I will say I am a Sonos speaker user. In front of my TV right now, I do have a Beam, which I love, but I did buy the sub.
Yeah.
I went all in a couple of years ago and I decided I'm going to buy it, and it did radically change the experience. However, especially with a soundbar like the Ray, which only costs less than $300, I wouldn't recommend you buy a $300 soundbar and then buy a $700 subwoofer to go along with it. I imagine people who are looking to spend around $300 on a soundbar, they're kind of looking to go all in. So with that in mind, what are some, you sort of mentioned it at the top, but some other options in the $300 range that you think are, worth buying?
Well, the Vizio M Series 5.1 soundbar is our editor's choice. It's about 330. And the soundbar itself has height channels. It can cover Dolby Atmos, it has center channel. It has rear satellites, so you can actually have a full surround experience and a wireless subwoofer. It doesn't have a voice assistant, but for all those, like for the spatial audio and the power you're getting from the subwoofer and just the improvement of quality, that's more than enough benefit to justify the extra 50, 60 bucks. If you want to spend less, the Roku Streambar Pro is another good speaker. It also doesn't have a voice assistant, but it's also much less expensive than the Ray and is expandable for much less too. You can get the Roku TV wireless speakers and the Roku wireless subwoofer both for less than 300 bucks total, and give yourself a 5.1 surround system with a lot of bass for much less, for basically as much as the Beam costs. And it also is its own Dolby Vision capable media streamer. So if you don't already have a media streamer, if you're not a fan of your current smart TV platform, there's that bonus too.
All right, so there you have it. This is the Sonos Ray. It's the most affordable soundbar from Sonos. However, we do feel like it is lacking in a number of features that the more pricey soundbars have, and that really sort of brings down the entire experience, unfortunately. For more on the Sonos Ray, you could see our review on PCMag.com. We gave it 3 stars, and we have a full rundown there with specs and more details. Thanks for tuning into One Cool Thing, and we will see you again next time.